I'm Chris Nessie, host of Behind the Mic, Voices of the EPN, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Just like the show you're listening to now, shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
We're here, but it's your opening.
Podcast. Yeah. I thought you were going to sing. I thought that was going to be like you were meant to like sing into that intro.
We're here.
Like you were going to start doing some jazz music. You know, maybe. Fine. You know, I don't know. Anyway, it's the Hitech Podcast. What is up, folks? You're listening to the Hitech Podcast that I've now said 300, 400 times. I don't know how many times I've said our title. But
it's still the Hitech Podcast. So
yeah, good. It's still the Hitech Podcast. There you go. You are joined by me, one of the hosts, Josh Swartz, and joined by my also other host, Will. What's up, Will?
I'm working with the broken wing these days. It's not broken, actually.
Yeah.
Just mildly maimed. I've got a flesh
mildly
wound.
Maimed. That makes it sound worse. I gotta be honest. I think broken sounded better than mildly maimed.
Mildly maimed.
Yeah, I don't like mildly maimed to me sounds like a lion attacked you, but like not
right.
A full out
broken.
Attack, you know what I mean?
I hit it on a marble countertop too hard by accident, like a little chip. Mildly maimed is like it was in a lion's mouth.
Yes, but the lion was like, I'm not gonna chop it completely off. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just gonna, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't
like a
taste
lion trying to play with you. Yeah, it was just like
there you go.
Yeah. That was a weird.
Like in Ghost of Tsushima, when a bear gets you and it throws you, and you're like,
"Oh my gosh,
I'm a
it's
ragdoll
terrifying."
now.
Okay, folks. So here's the deal. Will and I have been playing Ghost of Tsushima, and by Will and I mean Will and his wife Marissa and I have been playing Ghost of Tsushima. He can't play right now because he's injured, which is horrible timing. It's like the game literally came out right before you got injured. If some of you are listening to this and you have a PlayStation, you're like, the game's been out for a while. Shut up. We have PCs, so we just got it, okay? And we've been playing the crap out of this game. I've been thoroughly enjoying it. All of my samurai dreams have come true. But you are right. When wild bear, like, I should be more terrified of Mongols carrying dual swords, but I am not. I am more terrified of a bear. It is so hard to fight.
The animals are tough. They've got these predator elements that.
Yeah, a dog knocked me off my horse. I didn't know where it was. And next thing I know, I'm being dragged around by a dog. It was crazy. I can take on full human warriors, but dogs, they're insane.
You're done.
It's a great game. We're not a gaming podcast, but it's a great game. Will and I like to play it. It's a lot of fun. I've been waiting for it for a while.
Check it out.
There's you should go check it out. If you play Ghost of Tsushima, go check it out. Hashtag
we're over here repping games.
Yeah.
But if they'd like to be.
Yeah, I take it. I have a katana up on my wall, so I don't know if that helps. Maybe
mine's out there in the hallway.
Oh, that's nice. I have mine always ready in the office in case I need to,
Smart.
I don't know, fight off bad emails with a sword. I don't really know what I'm doing.
I like that.
Anyway, it's a Hitech Podcast, and this is episode 152. We are super excited about this episode because it is the end of season 6 of the Hitech Podcast. Who thought it would ever come? We didn't, because we kept extending season 6.
We had this idea a while ago that we're going to make seasons a specific thing, and then we did it for one season.
No, we did it for 2. We had 2 seasons. There was
specifically this season,
15 episodes long. Yeah,
and then got nuts.
And then we this season we had to keep extending because of some stuff. We'll explain a little bit at the end of the episode and in our next episode. You'll hear
start
about
of season 7.
Yeah. But for this episode, we are still. Well, I mean, we're talking about fun stuff every episode, but like this episode, we're still doing it. I don't know, whatever that may be. For this, it's going
good
great.
talk.
Good talk. Today, we wanted to talk about how to retain faculty and staff, right? So, in this, I think we can broaden this a little bit. This doesn't just have to be like Will and I originally come from higher ed backgrounds, right? So we're saying faculty and staff because it's kind of our experience, right? Is instructors being faculty members, you got your staff people who they say are equal, but let's be honest, they don't treat us like we are.
Savage. Some of them.
Listen, if it's true, it's true. I'll call it. Not all of them are that way. Yes, that's very true. They're very great people that we have met that are faculty. And I'm saying this, I am technically a faculty member.
Oops.
I'm both. I live in between.
He hates half of himself.
I'm both. Yeah, I'm both vampire and human. It's kind of, it's like I'm like Blade. I have a katana.
Blade. All right, Walter.
I have a katana and I'm Blade.
More nerddom.
I heard. Okay. Anyway, but this is not just be faculty and staff. I think we've got a problem across K-12 education as well of retaining teachers. I mean, we hear constantly that it's hard to find teachers and that they're not keeping teachers and losing teachers, and we see teacher burnout a lot, right? I think you would agree with that, right, Will?
Oh yeah, and we're not going to just say pay them more and end the episode, though I'm reaching up to end the recording. No, I'm joking. There's this big moment, of course, where we can say pay them more. That will be a part of this conversation. Absolutely. Payment is important in education. It is ridiculously an underpaid industry. Ridiculously. Doctors and firefighters and educators should be paid plenty of money. Let them be paid so that they can do critical societal tasks. But we're not going to just talk about that. We're going to get into other.
We'll talk about it for a while. Then we'll end the episode. We'll come back.
We'll see. If we could just pay them more. No,
and also, I do want to highlight, I don't think that's just the solution, right?
Right.
Okay.
No,
now, Will and I are coming at this both from a perspective of we've taught, we've worked, and we're not just talking faculty teachers, we're talking staff people that work there are tons of staff that work both in districts as well as higher ed institutions that are not faculty members, but they're doing very important work towards what the institution or school is doing. Right?
Education as a whole.
Education as a whole. People work in education. We're talking about both of those. So like from Will and I's perspective, like we already know on the podcast, Will's not currently in education for a lot of different reasons. We did a whole episode on it that was the start of this season, right? Season 6 has been going on for a while. Yeah. Started season 6. You can go listen to why Will left higher ed. But I've worked in higher ed. I teach in higher ed, though I am leaving higher ed as well, which will be a topic for a next episode. But but this is coming from both of us who have been passionate about education for a while. We have lots of friends in education. We've worked in education, and I currently still work in education. So I want to package all of that, right? And this is coming out of a lot of different things for me. Like I think Will's right. Like part of this is pay, but part of it isn't always. I think for as much, I was just talking about this with Robin, who's been on the podcast. Like as much as it is true that there are a lot of teachers not being paid well. There are districts, the right districts or the right institutions that actually pay their faculty and teachers well.
And they still lose
depending on what you do, and they still lose them. And so I think there's a little bit to this, and this could be applicable to those of you listening who are not in education and running businesses as well. I think there's this misconception that to keep people, you just need to pay them more. And in my experience, it's not always reality. Now that is not a takeaway to go, cool, I'll pay my people less. That is a factor. Okay. I think appropriately paying people is part of a factor, but I think all of it for me comes down to this. Okay. I'm going to oversimplify the problem, and it probably will be too much, but I'm going to gun for it. Okay. Here's where we're going to go. You need to show that you actually give a crap about the people that you've hired. All right. Like, I don't care if it's pay. I don't care if it's opportunities. I don't care.
Nailed it.
What it is. People will stay for people they feel care about them and they feel like they can do work that matters. And that will get people through even some of the hardest times. So like full transparency, right? I'm going to talk about this more at the start of our next season. But I have currently resigned my job in higher education, and I'm coming with Will to the
corporate dark side.
Okay. And we'll talk more about that later, but not actually working with Will. I'm not going to Will's company, but I am working a different job, although we might be at the same co-working space. So it's kind of like we're working together. So I am leaving higher ed. So I've been thinking about this a lot, right? Yeah. I come from a team that I consider to be one of the best teams I've worked with in most of my professional career. They have been amazing. And I have been there for 5.5 years. And a lot of why I stayed where I was, I would love to tell you I've just been unhappy the last couple months. That's not true at all. But part of the reason
Sam, he has been unhappy for much longer than that.
Yes, he can attest. Will knows. Okay. But what has kept me in that place for so long was the team of people I was working with and the person I was working for. Like my director obviously cares about all of us in the office, and that was felt extensively in the office. And I'm noticing that people stay when they feel like they are cared for and when they feel like they have a place to contribute, right? When that are the two things that people have, then they stay. And that's pay is part of that. Like you can only be the nicest employer for so long and be paying someone crap money before they start to realize they don't actually care. If they did, they would probably pay a little bit more. But it's not just pay. I've seen plenty of people leave places that give them tons of money, but it's very clear that the people above them and the people that they're working for just don't care about them. That at the end of the day, they are just another cog in the machine to getting to their final product, right? Like that's part of it.
To briefly speak to what you're experiencing right now, Josh's director was my coworker, and he became the director like 2 months after I resigned, or maybe not even. He became the director when I resigned my position under that team and left. I loved working with this guy. I loved working with that team. I stayed there for 4.5 years while being underpaid, not well developed, appreciated, but like it was those people. It was Josh's current director, my former co-worker, who these just people we could band together. We were on the task. We were passionate for what we were doing. And I know if Eric had become the director 6 months sooner, I might still be there today. Right? Like I know that team that you've ended up being in and he has cultivated with you is somewhere I would have wanted to be. Once I went to my next position, I was thankful to have one or two folks that I was with, but it was night and day, still noticing like that team, that passion, that caringness, that shoulder to shoulder. We ate lunch together every day, that group, right? I even just my next position, nowhere near that. And now I'm in a remote position where cultivating those relationships with colleagues is not as easy. That's true. I'll admit that. And I don't have that kind of feeling of connectedness, the feeling that folks are caring for me, the feelings that that I'm a part of that team. You know, I've got a few of those good colleagues at my remote job, but there's nothing like that first team and those people, right? Josh, we've had something so precious, so unique in this world to have had teams like that would make us stay, that would help us want to stay despite the constraints that we point at, like pay, like benefits, like hours, like, right? I can't fathom that enough that it's like it's a unique little spot that you landed in, that I was in. It was just,
yeah. And I would say on the remote side, like, and this isn't a work podcast type of thing, but shit. But I think the remote stuff, there's a lot of ways to cultivate. There are companies who do cultivate this well in remote, and even institutions who do this remote. There's ways to do it. I think my point is just that it's all, in my opinion, it's all about how people feel that they are being cared for and developed. And like, it's not just about the students getting what they need every day, but it's about which is also very, very important in education. I'm not downplaying that. I'm saying that it's about supporting the teachers and faculty and staff in doing that, and showing it's not just about you doing the job every day, but it's about, I want to help develop you into the best person you can be in that role and the most impact that you can do. And that I think plays out in, yes, some finances, but it also plays out in investing well into development, faculty development, staff development, right? Not just putting somebody in a position and letting them live in that position forever. Like, let me take my team for a second, right? I started as an instructional technologist and learning management administrator. I can't even say the LMS admin. Let's just say that. I can't even say the whole title anymore.
IT and LMS.
Yeah, so IT and LMS, right? Okay. And that was Will's fault because I blame the slash on Will.
You're welcome.
So
I wrote it.
Yeah, I know you did. It's been the running joke back in the early days of the podcast. If you're listening to us, I used to blame Will for that title all the time. I was in that title when we started this podcast, right? So that was kind of my original job in that space. I knew very little about that job. I got hired into that job because they needed somebody. I was connected to Will, so that helped a little bit, but also like I did have experience that went over to that, and I was experienced at least in like I had been a TA and GA, so I had some experience in higher ed. So that's partially why it worked out, right?
You had the seeds of the skills they wanted, and they watered those seeds. They nourished
and they watered them, right? Like, so like Eric, my boss in that space, could have put me into that position, just had me working and kind of ran with that. Now, I showed some initiative in places, but he definitely helped develop me from that space. He gave me opportunities to jump out of my just everyday job and experience other things. He gave me development opportunities, whether it was courses or projects or things that I could work on and do, right? And on the teacher side, that's the same space, right? Like, are your teachers coming in and you're just literally having them in the classroom every day, in and out, doing the same thing every day, creating learning plans and laying things out? Are they doing that every day and you're giving them no kind of development to experiment outside of that, or encouragement to experiment outside of that, or to try new things in their classroom? Like, if they want to try new things in their classroom, how do you handle that as an institution or a school? Is that discouraged and they're pushed right back on into the everyday? Like, I think that's a lot of the reasons why people end up quitting in those spaces. They don't have spaces to be encouraged to develop and grow. And I've seen people in leadership go, well, that's on them to try to figure out those opportunities. It's like, but they can't if they're not given the space. If they're not given a place to tell you when they could see a passion grow farther than that, right? I was given that opportunity, right? I was given an opportunity to tell the person above me, this is what I'm interested in doing. And sure, there were tons of things I was interested in doing that was like, well, that's probably not the best idea for what we're doing because it has nothing to do with our current day jobs. But that's cool that you're interested in that. I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not saying a teacher comes to you and goes, I'm interested in
pottery,
and they're not teaching anything related to pottery. And you say, cool, we're going to start a pottery class for no reason. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they could. Now that we're saying that example, I think that might be an interesting concept.
Okay.
Tanks.
Maybe it's tanks.
Tanks.
I'm really interested in tanks.
And they're teaching kindergarten. Maybe it's not the best idea to have them create a kindergarten tanks class. You know, like, but there are spaces where you can interconnect. I think I was just talking about this with somebody the other day. All professional development, in my opinion, is finding where a person could be and where they're passionate about, and finding how to connect that to your organization so that both of you grow together into something better, right? And that's a lot of what I think development is. Would you agree?
Yeah, yes, and a good leader should be looking to see where that is in your team, or how to connect you to the right team where you are, if that's not, right? I think a stretch goal for professional development is how to develop the person for their passions to pursue the best work they can do where you are, but at whatever team your organization, institution, district has, right? It's okay to lose a good employee from your team to somebody in the business who's like, if I think about, we've got 5 geniuses on one team, that's awesome. They're going to do some huge things. But imagine if those 5 geniuses are also out in the rest of the district with other really smart people and some pseudo geniuses and some other geniuses we haven't identified yet. And you can just think about how they're going to raise up all these different teams. Professional development can be as much as like getting someone courses and certifications, like your project management cert, right? To giving somebody the chance to try something risky, to letting somebody just start cross-functionally helping another team. You know, it's like loan your employees out. Let them go work in sales for a minute or something, or let them go, check out enrollment management for kicks and giggles. Let them go work with IT for a day and just learn how hard it is to take care of all the computers. Like there's when you think about the life cycle of an employee, there's some weird constructs around, like, I'll just say it's kind of industrial. Like, we have to get this employee in their seat to do the task that they're hired to do. When you think about the life cycle of an employee, if they stayed for 20 years, what does one day mean in the scope of those 20 years? Wouldn't it be great if they got one day to just go and try out another team, try a different task, do something that they're interested in, express their passion? That one day is not going to sink their value to the business. It's not going to sink their impact at the business. And it may give them the connection to another team that they could do so much for. Even one day could change an employee's life, change an employee's career by letting them try something out. I know that there's a couple of one days in my career that stand out as like getting me to the next step in what I was doing. One day I was being asked to do like, some grunt work, copy and paste stuff from spreadsheets. And I thought to myself, what if I automated this? And seeking the answer to that question taught me so much about the learning management system. I wasn't the administrator, but by getting into the nitty gritty of how to automate that feature, so I didn't want to have to manually make 400 courses by copying and pasting off a spreadsheet. I learned how to administrate Moodle and I became the LMS administrator. And then I eventually went through an LMS transition and implementation and led every LMS I've touched since I did that, right? That one day, that one opportunity for me was good. And I'll be honest, like my boss didn't give me that. I sought it, but I would love if there were opportunities for businesses, institutions, districts to offer that to folks. What if a math teacher really wants to try out computer science? I've heard of a few things like that happening. Like, oh, I code at home. Why can't I teach the kids? And suddenly they've started a computer science program. But computer science is interesting. Everybody wants the money on that. It's the STEAM or STEM approach, right? Like, what if the math teacher wants to teach Spanish? It might not go as well as computer science these days, but I think that there's room to give people these chances at one day to try something out.
Well, and I think development in those spaces too, right? Providing development opportunities to expand beyond just what they're doing or expand their teaching spaces, right? How often do we see time and time again faculty and teachers having to justify professional development to places, right? And investing the energy into it. And also like it is a give and take relationship. I think faculty and staff, you also have to recognize that the institution also should be able to speak into some of the types of professional development you're doing, because it does have to tie at the end of the day. You work for a certain school or organization that has a mission, and it should tie to some of the mission of that place, right? It can't all be about just you doing whatever you want to do. It has to tie into what they're doing. But like providing
tanks are fun though. Why can't we all just learn about tanks? Yeah,
I mean that's different. Tanks are a different thing, But like that's obviously everybody should learn about that. But on the other hand, it has to tie into the spaces, so I get that. But too often, I've seen professional development just either withheld or super restrictive for people.
Yeah,
and
those budgets have all been slashed since COVID.
Yes, and like how many times have I heard in many places, not publicly because we wouldn't say this publicly, but that we hear people make comments like basically like, "I wish I had better faculty," or "I wish I had better teachers." Right, in the institution, it's always their fault in the space. Yet, how much energy are you actually investing in developing and caring about those people? Like, how much energy?
What if you have the better teacher, and you just need to help them get better? Yes.
Yeah. What could they be? Right. We were just going through a professional development, or like a book I'm part of for the time being until I'm done, part of the leadership team in the office, right? And we were looking at part of professional development is not like. People, I think, often look at professional development as equipping people to do the job they've been given. That's not correct. That's called training. That's called actually just, training the person to do the job. I remember reading this book.
Yes.
I'm not going to quote it exactly, but I remember what he basically said. That's the least you can do. That's actually the minimum of what you should be doing. Is
punch them in the gut.
People to do their darn jobs. That's the minimum that you should.
That's training.
Doing. Actual professional development is equipping them to be more than what their job is. It's equipping them to do their job at a different level. It's equipping them to it's investing into the growth of that person, not better metrics, not more, meeting state standards. It's into developing into that person. And I would argue if you do that time and time again, you will retain your faculty and staff more than anything else. That's what it comes down to. Like, Will and I are passionate about professional development because we work in it. We work in learning and development. We work in those spaces, right? And it's always the organizations that invest a lot of energy into that I think retain their people more and more, right? Even the companies who thought they were jumping on, Will and I are both millennials, that were jumping on the millennial train where they're like, we'll get more, pogo sticks and trampolines and I don't know, whatever the heck it was. It was like basically
we got to make work more fun.
Yeah, we need to make work more fun. That didn't work.
Yeah.
Whether the millennial generation thought it would or not, it's not. That didn't work. What works is people caring and developing their employees, and their employees feeling like they're actually a part of what's happening, and knowing at the end of the day that it came down between it, their employer would do everything they can to put them first and make them successful in their jobs first before anything else. Like, those are the ones who, in my opinion, keep their faculty and staff no matter what it is. And yes, sometimes that means paying them what they should be paid because they're worth it, or paying them what they should be in those spaces.
Because if you don't, someone else will. That's the story. I mean, like, there are the exceptions of folks who lose their jobs and end up at the $10 an hour, $12 an hour jobs because it's all they can get, and that's what they have to feed their families. But like, the other side of that coin is folks getting 20, 30, 45% raises. I have a colleague who got a 35% raise when leaving one business to another. 35% on some of these corporate positions that are already six figures, folks. I don't know who's what was paid, but like, I'm just imagining that some of these folks then end up making really big dollars. It astounds me. Nope, I'm not gonna say what I'm gonna say, but it astounds me to think that what people are getting paid out there in corporate is you could take some of these big tech companies' salaries of like one or two teams, and you could revolutionize 10 districts with just their salaries, right? Like, you think of, I'm not saying like, oh, Bill Gates, if you just give away $10 million, I'm saying, oh, Apple, if you got rid of maybe two content teams whose collective salaries are a total of, $2 to $3 million a year, and that is $2 to $3 million a year, because Bill Gates' money once, $10 million is great, but $10 million once doesn't do anything. If there was an annual upsurge of $3 million in a local school district, that would change teachers' lives. Now, of course, that money would never make it to the teachers because of government bureaucracy, but that's not the point of this episode.
Whoa, we're turning into a different podcast. Wow, we went down a different...
I won't get on that soapbox just
I knew this was a dangerous topic for Will and I, because it might take us down some other trains we don't normally talk about. But I think why this is definitely a hot button topic that kind of just came up for Will and I as we were talking about it's stuff we've cared about for a while, but I think part of the reason we're talking about it is because there's been some recent stuff in my life development, and this happened in Will's, that has caused us to think about this a little bit more in a different direction. And part of it for me is I have seen at different institutions, and this is not everybody, but I have seen this perspective that like those who have been here for a while don't know what they're doing. And there's kind of like this view of like, we need better employees. And it's like, we'll get new people and they'll be better. Like, care for the people you have. Like, I don't think any person wants to do poorly at their job. But if they feel like somebody actually cares and is trying to not just get more out of them, but develop them as a person, then you will get more out of them. Like, that's part of this. Time and time again, people and leaders come into this space and they go and they say, it's caring more about the people and how you develop them than it is about the bottom line and the numbers that you want. And like, that's time and time again, those will help you get to the space you want. But for some reason, we keep thinking if we treat people like robots and go and find the next new model, it'll be totally great on the other end. Like, that's not how this works. And I've seen this play out. So it's at the end of the day, like, if we want better teachers, we want better people.
You've been a people manager too. You've lost people in the process. Like, right? Like, you've had people come and go through your management because payment, what they get cared for by the business.
Two and one doesn't count. But but it does happen. And like, if I'm just being blunt on the podcast, like part of the reason I'm changed, there's a lot of different reasons I'm changing in my world, but part of mine is I feel like I've seen not the immediate culture of the team I work in, but a culture where I feel like those of us who have chosen to stick around are not being valued appropriately. And it's just, if you want to keep and have good faculty, staff, and teachers, then you need to start focusing on how do we better them instead of how do we go find somebody else better. Like, that's where it comes down to for me. And I think
let's go hire some VP from somewhere.
Yes, right. Like let's throw another, huge pay salary of a VP at something, and that'll fix the problem. That's not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there shouldn't be VPs. I'm not saying there shouldn't be administrators who need to be hired. I'm not of that perspective that if we just had a teacher run the school, I know you might be.
I might be.
I know you might be. But like that's not my perspective. I do see places for those leaders. I've seen very good leaders in administrative work who have not taught a lot, because it's not, I love my teachers, but it's not all, they're also sometimes not great at administering things. I'm sorry. Like I have teachers who are horrible at doing that. And if they just ran an institution, might run it into the ground, because that's that's the point. I'm not saying administrators shouldn't exist. I'm saying I think they need to care more about people.
Yeah.
Like we need to start putting people first in this space. And that doesn't, and I'm not saying like you tank the whole organization or school because you care more about the people. There's a point where sometimes you do have to make hard decisions financially. Right. I'm not saying that, right? But what I think a lot of the things that are advertised as making hard decisions aren't that hard of decisions. They're people taking the easier route instead of developing the people they have into something better, so that down the road it can be a better organization, or students can get taught better, or classes can be better. I think that's my take.
Yeah. And some of this industry situation, some of the moments right now is like, there are plenty of folks who are not getting paid well. That the whole hashtag transitioning teachers movement was because teachers are tired of getting paid like crap, especially getting beat up after the COVID, and deciding to come out of that moment and be like, oh, I can go get a 6-figure job in ed tech. Like a majority of K-12 educators, unless they're in a very affluent space, will never make 6 figures. Will never make 6 figures. A traditional K-12 educator just doesn't have that career opportunity. I'm not saying everything's about money. It's not always that the 6 is the magic number and 6 figures, your life's different. It's an amazing and beautiful thing if you have access to those many resources, right? But when we think about why those folks were getting underpaid left, now we've got people getting laid off because they were making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. We're not talking about people who we're not talking about industries and when we're in education, we get layoffs in some private colleges where the people are only making $50,000, $60,000, maybe $70,000. They're being laid off for financial reasons because the institution couldn't pay them $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year. Corporate cuts people because there's too many people making $200,000 and $300,000 a year, right? That's what we're talking about here, folks. The difference between corporate and education is that we've got these like higher ed institutions that are laying people off, dropping people, and they're only paying them pennies in the first place. Tell me what the mismanagement is there of these leaders who have let the college get where it is, or let the university get where it is for these kinds of things to happen.
And they are different business sectors. I do want to acknowledge that, right? Like we are talking different. The people that are laying off $300,000-$400,000. They're also their business is making quite a lot. They shouldn't
be being paid that in the first place.
There's a reason that people are being paid that.
I'm saying there's an inflated wage economy. Like I think wages are too high.
Yeah. I think that's different. It's ridiculous. But no, it is true. I mean, like if I have seen people laid off and then higher up positions being posted, and like
that happened to me.
Yes. And like the point being like, and I've seen this even happen, like positions being hired for positions that already exist. Somebody's been there for 3 years, but the new person got hired and they just got hired at more money. Right. Like, we just accept that that's a reality, but like, what would it look like to instead change that and go, how do we make sure that we're consistently raising pay for the people we have to incentivize them to be there for a long time? Like it's proven time and time again, losing employees ends up costing more money down the road because you lose the resource that was there for a while. And while sometimes bringing in new people with new ideas and stuff works, it's shown time and time again, the people who are there, who have been consistently there and caring long time for the organization, end up paying off significantly more down the road than just some new maverick we pulled in for a whole hot second who seems to have some great ideas. Like it does make a difference.
we lost somebody in the last year at my day job, and we're currently having to rewrite an entire API because nobody knows how it was done. And it was done differently than the current expert knows how to do it. So he's just rewriting it. This API has been running for 4 years. So there's some ROI. It worked. It got us a lot of value for time, right? But now it has to be rewritten because the expert that we had couldn't be kept. And didn't document their work. I mean, there's just two parts of that problem.
Yeah,
right?
that's another problem.
That's expensive. Not only do we need to hire a new person, not only do we need new experts, but then we have to redo existing work. It was working. It needed to be updated. We needed to add fields, right? And now he's rewriting the entire API. Like,
yeah. And again, that's a different thing outside of education. But either way, it's all about development and how we look at people. Like at the end of the day, investing into the people we have, that's how you retain them. And that's a combination of things. It's not just we need to pay them more. Everybody wants more money. Yes, people want a bit more money. That's not a lie. Like nobody's going to be like, oh, darn, you paid me more. That's not going to happen. Like, no, don't pay me that. I'm happy with my salary as it is right now. I don't know of anybody who has said that. But it's not just that. There are plenty of organizations who pay people really well and they still lose people because they don't invest into people down the road. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's why we're so passionate about doing development correctly. It's why we're passionate about laying out faculty development, doing all of that stuff well, because I think you end up getting better faculty members, better teachers, better employees at the end of the day when you invest energy into developing them into what they could be, not what you just see today. Like that's what I think is part of it, and that's how we keep people. So anyway, that's our synthesis, if you will, of how to retain faculty and staff. Because Will and I are clearly experts. We know everything. No. I will just make this plug. If this is something you're also passionate about and you want to talk about, please reach out to us at inbox@hitechpod.us. That would be fantastic to have you on. This is a topic that Will and I really like talking about, and a little preview. It'll fit a bit better into the new Hitech that will be coming.
There's two reasons for that plug. One, get on here and talk with us. Two, do you need help? We're happy to help, right? We want to provide our thoughts. So inbox@hitechpod.us will get you right to me. FYI, folks, this has happened to a few people. That is an email alias of another inbox. So if you get a reply from our Gmail account, that's fine. It's just an alias, but it gets you to us quicker. So
we're like spies, but the friendly kind, the ones who won't kill you.
Friendly kind. Now let's synthesize some new thoughts with
way to bring it back.
Our app of the episode, Synthesia. Spoiler alert: this is expensive. I am not going to beat around that bush. I'm not going to suggest that there is a freemium version to this. You can go on Synthesia's website, which is synthesia.io, and create a free video. You can test it out, see how it works. You can play around with it. So you can get in for free, but it is not a free product. It's an expensive product. Synthesia is an AI avatar and voice generation platform. And I've been using it now for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. It's gotten scarily good. When I first made a video using Synthesia, I showed it to a friend not at work, a friend at home at my dinner table. It's like, hey, what do you think of this video? And he looked at it and he blinked a little bit and he was like, I don't know. I was like, can you tell that it's an avatar? And his eyes got big. He's like, what? It was weird. It was weird, but he's like, I wasn't sure why it was weird. I was like, because it's an avatar. It's computer generated. This human being you're looking at in front of you doesn't exist. They exist somewhere in the world. They have given their image to Synthesia or sold their image to Synthesia or whatever. And Synthesia has used it to create video characters. But I just did a video last week. So that was like probably a year or two ago when I showed that reference. I just did one last week. I showed it to somebody else and they thought it was human. They could not tell. They didn't say. They actually have just released the third version of their AI avatars and they're so good. Before, some of the problems and even consistently in other platforms, some of the problems with avatars is they don't like nod their head at the right timing. They really just like blink weird. Sometimes they don't speak in the right cadence at the right time.
Wait, are you an AI?
Blink twice. You know, like there's just tells. There's little things that are based. It's at the end of the day, if you don't understand these things, right? Too, like someone stands in front of 360-degree cameras that film them. It doesn't even have to be 360, but they stand in front of a lot of cameras that film them and capture all of the motions of their jaw, of their nose, of their eyes as they emote. They capture so many things of them, and then they stitch a million little videos together that correlate to text scripts that are spoken word, and the computer automatically AI generatedly stitches all those little clips together into your script. So no human has ever read your script before, but one human read 3 hours of scripts that was recorded and captured almost every possible sound and structure the mouth can make, and now this platform recreates it. And dang it, man, it's so good now. Like they still have version 1s and version 2 avatars. You can use them. It's like these things are just so clunky. Why would I use a V1 or V2? If you roll out a V3, I promise you could convince someone it's a real human, that someone was recorded.
Oh, wow.
The voices are getting better. And with the V3s, that one of the issues that they had early on, V1s and V2s, they had a few recommended voices, but they let you pick of their 300, 500 voices. You can still pick it and change, but with the V3s, they have like a top 5 or top 10 voices that are designed for the V3 avatars. So the voices in those top set are so good. I'll shoot straight here, right? You could pick a black avatar with a very, I will say, white sounding voice, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. It's kind of like racially gross. It's not good that you can do that. But one of the troubles as a producer, like myself, of making some of these things is like, I want to make sure that the content I'm producing is diverse, that it's inclusive, that it's equitable to the people that are going to watch it. I don't want to give someone who sounds different from what they look. But now I have that bias too of like, what does someone sound like? It gets a little sticky with these things. So they've actually paired the avatars better with these V3s to voices that would be more natural to the human that they're representing, and it doesn't get disconnected. Let's put it that way.
That's good. I like the connection point. Like that's because it's difficult in the AI stuff, because I've seen people do that. Like they'll manipulate,
right?
They want to look diverse, but their own bias and how it's said and what is said comes in, and they end up connecting it. So I like, if you're gonna do that stuff with Avatar, with AI avatars, like it should be properly representative of the people that you're doing it with, right? Like that should it should be faithful to that and caring of that. So I think it's cool that they're doing that.
They're also driving towards being an e-learning development platform. And I know this because when they launched, you could put a person with a picture and a couple of little text boxes. Right now, it's like a PowerPoint creator. I've got shapes. I've got animations in and out. I've got timing. I've got triggers. I've got all these kinds of things. Their top competitor, Colossian, just released quiz questions with their videos. So I expect Synthesia is going to jump on that bandwagon soon enough. I can take a script and put it in Synthesia, and it will auto-generate the entire video for me. The avatar, the text boxes on screen, it'll even choose the animations and the pacing of the video. You can have it create an entire video for you from scratch. Just a text generation, just a text prompt.
And let me take a second maybe to pitch of why I think these tools are useful and interesting, because I every time we talk about this, I immediately imagine an entire group of my faculty with pitchforks and torches ready to burn us at the stake for the weird magic that we're doing. But I've had a lot of interesting conversations about this recently with people in my field, and it's just one of those dynamics that what we keep coming up to all the time in course creation or development, and you definitely experience this at a corporate level too with developing the level stuff you're doing, is like getting good video content is really hard, especially at the space and timing that we want to do stuff, right? And especially at the pace everything changes, right? Like you put a ton of energy into these videos, and then just hypothetically, right? Let's talk about, this isn't a hypothetical, it's real. Let's talk about a counseling program that like something changed the next year, standards, right?
Yep.
And now this whole course needs updated, and you need to update all these videos, but maybe I don't have access to the original expert who did the videos.
Yep.
Now I got to find someone else to do the videos. And I maybe get my faculty member to record the video themselves, but they are not media producers. So quite frankly, it looks like trash. It's not great.
They're recording like this.
Yes, so like sideways. I've had like in a complete dark room where you can barely see the face. It's not their fault. That's not their job, right? And
they're just doing their best.
Do we go out? We do a ton of big video production. But that might not be financially the best decision, right? To do all of that stuff, right? If we go back to our earlier conversation about investing in faculty, maybe they wouldn't be able to invest in faculty because they're spending too much money on producing videos for a course that isn't their biggest producer as far as bringing in students. I don't blame an institution for that. That's financial. They've got to make those financial decisions, right? And so there's been a lot of conversation in my space about, not to be confused with the old social media platform, and in my area.
Nailed it.
Okay. So in my area, about what does it look like to leverage when it's not important who's in the video, but what the video is communicating? Where does it become okay to leverage some of these AI tools to produce well-produced videos that aren't going to be a distraction to the student or the learner in a way that then becomes much more easy to manage, right? So like, let's throw out a hypothetical. We create this AI thing in this counseling video, right? It doesn't matter who the person in the video is talking, just that the information that the person has given is there, and they're credited for their work on the course, right? Like that's pieces that should all be taken care of, right? But we generate that script, we work with them to develop that script, edit that script, throw it in there, we produce the video with AI, we get these great videos, and then a year later, some requirement changes, and it needs to be changed in 5 of the videos. Now we don't need to reshoot the videos. Now I can go in, edit the script, regenerate the video pretty quickly, put it back into the course, and it's not that big of a difference. Some faculty would want to kill me for that because it's not the real faculty member in the video. Some would be very happy that they don't have to be in a video anymore. It's a mixture, but
and give them some time and some space, because Synthesia has a whole package to just record yourself into it. So it could be faculty member.
Yeah, now some faculty members would be more terrified of that.
Yeah,
they would be okay with the avatar, and I don't blame them. Like,
same. I'm out. I don't want to do it.
Video recording myself, unless it's utterly important that this magnificent beard is in that video. I'm cool. I'm cool if you AI generate something else to say what I was gonna say. It's totally cool, right? Like we've been actually playing with this you and I do this in Storyline, but we've actually been playing with not doing AI avatar, but AR generated audio in training stuff that we've been working on in my space. Like we've been redoing faculty development. We decided, like, a lot of us were the video or the audio in those video recordings. We're like, what if we just stop doing that? We do this all in Storyline, and we generate the audio based on that. We find a voice that's going to work. We generate it, and then it's also much easier for us to go back and edit later when something needs changed.
Also a consistent voice. Yeah,
it's also consistent voice through the whole thing. And quite frankly, like, that's working a lot better in this space. So like, I think there's a lot to this, and I think there might be some value to this down the road where, like, faculty, those of you listening who might be up in arms about this, what if though your institution is able to save some money and put it back into development and put it back into caring for you as an actual employee by you just not having to be in that video? Like, is that really that big of a difference? We're not talking about removing you from the classroom. We're not talking about removing you from the actual teaching work that you do with your students. In a lot of these masterized, produced courses that Will and I have worked in, the videos don't have you as the teacher in them anyway. They have some expert to help design the course. So why does it matter? Like, let's do something that's sustainable, that we could pull off and leverage technology in a good way. I think this is a really cool tool. Now, it costs not a minimum amount of money. It's a lot of money.
It's 22 times 12, right? So it's $22 a month billed yearly. What I do like about this is that's not prohibitive for one license. Like, it's not like $10,000. It's not. It is going to be $2,000 or so. It's not cheap, but frankly, you can do a lot with one account, right? You only need one AI developer on your team. You need people writing the scripts. You need people getting that stuff together. But if you have one consolidated AI developer, you're golden. This person will have access to 120 languages, 70 plus avatars, AI video assistant, built-in screen recorder to capture like screens and stuff when you're doing tutorials or how-tos. The biggest limit is it's 120 minutes video per year. Then there's overage charges. So that's where it gets a little sticky. I think the best is an enterprise solution where you've got unlimited minutes, unlimited whatever, but it gets expensive. That is going to be over $10,000. Absolutely. So don't worry, teachers. You don't have to have this. You might not get this. You don't have to be bothered, but it's super cool tech.
Yeah, this is one that I think is worth talking about, but it's definitely something that's going to be difficult, I think, for the average like institution to pull off, just being honest. Yeah. So like Synthesia, if you're listening to this podcast episode for some reason, I'm sure we'll, or whoever,
I'm going to tag you.
There are other people
Hopefully
doing
social
media
listening, Synthesia.
You will be tagged. If you're listening, bro, you got to figure out those deals. Like that's all. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. 120 minutes of video per year. Like I go through
that'll get some people far.
Video. Yeah, get some people. I go through 120 minutes of video per day. Like that's nothing.
I could probably blow that in a quarter. Like 3 months, yeah. I could blow 120 minutes of video. Yeah. Thankfully at
the academic level, that's 12 videos. If I'm looking at like 10 minutes per video, give or take. Right? Like that's 12 videos. That's a course, maybe. Like
maybe not even enough.
That's not that much. I gotta be honest. So like that would be my one. If Synthesia, if you made it through the episode this long and you got to where we actually talk about you, that would be my feedback. I think this is super cool, and I'm sure there's a ton of energy that goes into making this. I'm not saying I don't believe your prices, but like if you really want to get out there, I love how we're kind of just having a one-on-one conversation with Synthesia right now, like as if they're carefully listening to this. By the way, you need to up that video count, that minute count. That's not going to do it.
Or make an education plan where educators get more minutes.
Where educators can do more minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks. This is Josh and I sat down to this episode. This will be a quick one. 50 minutes later.
Yeah. Well,
it's how we do. That's why we do the podcast, because we love this stuff. Thank you, as always, for listening to this conversation. Retain your faculty, retain your staff by caring for them, by cultivating them, by working on them, by giving them opportunity, by checking in with them, by paying them. All good. Check out Synthesia, really cool tool. Check out some of their competitors. This is a crazy market right now. Everybody's trying to do this. All that stuff aside, next episode is going to be episode 153, the start of season 7. I'm going to say it right now. It's going to look completely different. Josh and I are so excited for this next episode, which will bring in a new era of the Hitech Podcast. We are not going anywhere. We are not changing who we are. We're not adding
we will have gone to Mexico by the time the next episode comes out. So we are going somewhere, just not.
Yes.
You're not going to go.
But we are changing the tenor a little bit. We have loved education. This is ironic. This is not intended. I have stayed close to education, but I've been in corporate for a bit. Josh is leaving education. So are we. Not full-time, not completely. We still provide, we believe, insights that are relevant to educators. We will still talk about ed tech, but we are opening things up a bit. We're going to talk about all of that and more next episode, so you know exactly what we're doing, where we're going, but we're just trying to hook you right now because it's going to be good. We're going to be improving the podcast and adding more to what we can talk about and digging in deep to things that we are already doing, hopefully even crafting some ideas for what we could do with you, the listener. We want to bring more people into this. This is a community approach. We do this always to help others harness technology. Right? We want to help you. We want to help others. So bring educators to us. Don't leave us if you've been a friend. We love you. Stay with us. Hang tight. This is going to be okay. Okay. It's not going to be the end of the Hitech Podcast. It's just a refresh. So we're pretty stoked.
Yeah.
Follow us at Twitter, on YouTube at Hitech Podcast. Email us, inbox at hitechpod.us. Go to our website, which for episode 153 will be completely refreshed. Also, which is hitechpod.us. Also, which I forgot to mention, we're taking a little bit of a break. This will be releasing here on, you were waiting, June 4th. June 4th, 2024. This episode right now. The next episode will come out July 2nd, 2024. We need to go dark for a few weeks to get some things in order, change over some materials, and you will have a brand new look on July 2nd. We can't wait for you to see it all. All right. I think that was enough. That's enough of a teaser.
Yeah, you nailed it. It was great. It was perfect.
Thank you again, folks, for joining us for 152 episodes of what the Hitech Podcast has been, as we've continued to learn what it looks like to harness technology in the classroom, whether online or in person. Join us next week so that we can begin to harness technology everywhere.
Not next week.
Until then, no, next time, next episode, whatever. Until then, we'll see you.
See ya.